Well. If it isn't the Remodelers on the Rise live show coming at you for the second time this week, and frankly, the second time ever. For those of you who didn't hear, the Remodelers show, which is the name that you may kind of be used to or that you've heard most of last year, is now known as Remodelers on the Rise live. You can catch it live a couple times a week. You can also, in your little podcast apps, if you search Remodelers on the Rise, you'll see it on there. And if you do that, by the way, yours truly, your buddy Kyle, would love it if you left a little review on there. Just go into your little Apple, in particular, Apple podcast, search Remodelers on the Rise, and leave a little note there. We've got, starting off here, a little smiley face from somebody. Let me open up this so that I can see it. If you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, I can see your pretty face next to that. Okay, cool. So I posted earlier today. There's Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda. I posted earlier today. I said, what did I say? I said, it's kind of a weird day. It's kind of a weird day. What should I talk about on the Remodelers on the Rise live show today? Why do I say it's a live day, a weird day? Because I'm feeling weird. I'm very distracted yesterday with the news and the events at the Capitol. Probably stayed up a little too late watching and listening to all that. It was a fairly historic day, a lot going on in our country. And I think a lot of people are just feeling kind of weird. So that's why I wrote that, because that's how I'm feeling. And then Michael Anschel posted on the live feed and said, are you going to talk about yesterday? And I said, do people want their remodeling business coach buddy to talk about yesterday? Paul McManus chimed in. He wrote, no. And then Michael wrote this, I think so. Our businesses are part of an ecosystem, and our staff and clients are people. It's true. How do we talk about events like this? How do we consider their mental and emotional health? What about our silence about events like this? What does that say? These are tough questions, but business owners and leaders have to address them. Intentionality or inaction matters. So if you're somebody that's like, Kyle, this ain't the Rush Limbaugh show. This ain't the Rachel Maddow show. This isn't Fox News. This isn't, Newsmax. This isn't CNN. Like, I'm coming here to listen to you talk about how I can become a better remodeling business owner. Yeah, I hear you. And that's kind of how I feel too, for the most part. You're not going to hear from me any talk of like Antifa and Q, and I'm going to hear much of my opinion on Trump and Biden and who said what and how this all happened. You can find about 1,000 other voices who can tell you all about that and give their opinion on that. But it was interesting, Michael, I appreciated your comment, because that's a little bit of where my head was going. As leaders, as business owners, but in particular that word leaders of a team, of employees, of trade partners, how do we navigate not only what happened yesterday, but everything that's going on? Yes, political and the politics of everything. Yes, COVID. Has there been a time that's been more heated, that has had people in such division and differences of opinion? I'm only 30, almost 37. Am I 37? I'm 36 right now. My birthday's February 9th. Get those birthday cards ready, people. But so as a almost 37-year-old, it's hard to find a more divided time. But as a leader, how do we navigate it? Do we just say, look, I'm a person, I'm going to tell you my opinion? Some people approach it like that. Some people kind of say, you know what? Business is business, personal is personal. You might know, if we're friends, you're going to hear about it, but on a business standpoint, we never talk about this. But it's in our lives. People are talking about it. We are affected about it. We are emotional about it. So where do you strike that balance? That's kind of where I was on a call yesterday with one of my groups. And one of the gentlemen was a little bit late. He didn't catch the opening phrases of one of my other clients. And he kind of shared his opinion of everything COVID. Summary statement, bullcrap, hoax, etc. Little did he know that one of the gentlemen that did call in suffering from COVID right now. He's feeling like crap. He's been dealing with it for weeks. It's knocked him down, knocked him over a little bit. It's one little example of you don't know how the person that you're talking to is really feeling. People's opinions are changing and shifting. I think as a good leader, you are careful with the words you use. You are careful not to fan the flames. You are careful, especially in a business context with clients, with your team, to not just never share your opinion, but to be thoughtful, to be careful with how you talk, to be respectful of other people's opinions that are different than yours. You know what we suck at? I don't use the word suck very often. That's about as curse word as I get, and I don't like it when my kids use that word. But you know what we suck at in this country? Actually listening to somebody else's opinion and keeping our mouth shut to the point where we can actually listen to them. If you want to actually win arguments, if you want to actually convince somebody that they might be seeing something different, you know the best way to do that? It's not to talk over them. It's not to say more words than them. It's to actually listen. It's to put yourself in their shoes. It's to try to empathize with them. It's try to actually understand their position. And then from there, that is the foundation of a more fruitful conversation. We're terrible at that. We're terrible at that. And our politicians, whether it's Nancy, Mitch, Donald, Bill, George, whoever, I use the words Bill and George, not even thinking about that's two president names. I was just throwing names out there after those first few. We're just terrible at it. And they're not showing us how to do it well. Good leader of a business. And in particular, I would extol you and exhort you to say somebody that wants to heal some division in our country, who's sick of watching all of the division. How do we heal it? Where do we go from here? There's people sitting in the speaker's office. Like, that's just weird. Like, there's some weird stuff going on. There's just weird stuff going on. We've got to be more empathetic. We've got to be thoughtful. We've got to be careful with our words. And guess what? These thoughts are the same way you just lead your team well in general, right? Let's step aside from politics. Being a really good listener, being thoughtful with the words you use, biting your tongue, making sure you respect other people that think differently. These skills are lacking in so many of us, myself included. I'll throw my name in there too. And we need to get better at that. So, do we need to get it? Again, you don't need to hear from me my opinion on everything. But as a leader, which I consider myself, who has an audience, hopefully those words or some of those words in there can resonate. We need to be a little bit more peacemakers. We need to be more respectful of others. We ain't seen it from Washington. And guess what? We haven't seen it from Washington. We haven't seen it in politics in a very, very long time. And fast forward, I've got a word from 5 years from now. It ain't going to get better. Social media, the way that this divisions happen, is not going to get better. The only way it does get better is on a one-to-one basis, is on a lot of people deciding, I'm going to be more respectful towards others. I'm not going to take the thing that is the worst part of somebody and magnify it as loud as I possibly can and ignore any good that they have in them. And also on my end, I'm going to hide anything negative or bad and make sure nobody ever sees it. And I'm only going to amplify the good things that come out of me. I don't think so. I don't think that's the way that things are going to get better. So I guess that's from a business standpoint, from a leader standpoint, be thoughtful, be careful. You don't know what that other person is going through. You don't understand that they were saying that about COVID, and then they had somebody in their family die from it, and boom, they flipped their mindset on it. We have no idea how people are viewing things, nor should we just assume. Be thoughtful, be kind, be considerate, be a good leader. Okay. Listening, empathizing, holding a space for differing viewpoints. Great stuff. Peacemakers, there is a great quote on that. When there's conflict, not when there is peace. There's also a quote that says, blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah. Yeah. Peacemakers are in action when there's in conflict. It's interesting, right? We're in the middle of conflict. Are you fanning the flames? Are you pouring more gas on? Or are we looking at ways to get things under control? Okay. I think that might be all I got to say about that in the words of Forrest Gump. I hope that that gives you maybe just a little, one of the things I think we need to do is reorient some of our focus. We need to calm ourselves down. We need to take a deep breath and kind of think, okay, what's my role and where do I go from here? And to the point of, is this proper to talk about in business? And Michael, not to pick on you, but you're the one that kind of wrote that comment. I'm not picking on you, but one of the things when I posted the question, what's one of your goals for 2021? Michael posted something along the lines of, I want to make sure that I am checking in, providing resources, and helping with the emotional well-being of my team. Everybody's dealing with everything differently. I am so I was almost in tears last week with the thought of just being so frustrated by not being able just to go out and have dinner and not worry about these things and not think about this in-person meeting I have next Friday that's scheduled with a small group of my clients, and debating whether it makes sense to do that or not, because all of a sudden I get sick from that. And then I get a little loose and I go see my in-laws or my parents who are in their 70s, and all of a sudden they get it. Like, we're all dealing with so much emotion and minutia with all of this, that we've got to respect. Like, if I'm fairly strong mentally, and my mental health needs to be maintained and managed, let alone if somebody is naturally leaning towards addiction or depression. You know what there's a lot of in our industry? There's been all kinds of articles about this in Professional Remodeler over the years. Addiction and depression is prevalent in the trades. We have got to be checking in on the health and well-being of our teams. What an amazing goal to actually just have that as a leader of your business, to not that you're necessarily going to be counselor in chief, but to provide resources, to provide a listening ear, to even just bring it up and check in. How are you doing emotionally? Is there anything I can do for you? If you want to call that not being a leader, you're going to have a tough time convincing me of that. More of that. We need to care. Okay. Maybe that's enough for now. I hope that's helpful. Okay. Where do we transition from there? Do I just hit the chime? Do I just hit the chime and then start talking about something else? Take a breath? I guess. That's probably right. All right. Where do we go from here? There were some people that, addiction. Thanks for bringing that one up. A lot of people are struggling. Guys, okay. Like, one of my clients last fall walks into one of their job sites and one of their trades is hanging there. One of my buddies took his life a year and a half ago. It still brings crazy emotion. Like, you want to talk about real stuff? Like, we got to be thoughtful. We've got to think of other people. When I talk about listening and being empathetic, having your eyes out. I remember after my buddy died and not seeing it coming, and sometimes you don't and sometimes you do, but being brave to have hard conversations, seeing some of your team or people or colleagues acting differently than they normally do, and having the courage to talk to them and to ask them if they're okay, is beautiful and needed. And we are all wound up tighter than we've ever been. Okay. Whew. Okay. Margaret commented on my post of, what do you want to talk about today? And she said, weird is one way to describe it. It is weird. Up is down, down is up. It's amazing. Sean said, how to keep your head up and above water in turbulent times. You know what I want you to talk about, Kyle? How to keep your head up and above water in turbulent times. What comes to mind for that? For one, you guys can comment on that if you would. Deep breath, Kyle Hunt. Okay, here I am. I'm good. When I started talking about my buddy, I needed some breath. Okay. How to keep your head above water. One of the things that I've been talking a lot about lately, and I think this kind of ties in with how do we keep our of water. We'll go route of a post that I made earlier today about the frog. eat your frog, that analogy of what is the most important thing you need to get done that you're most likely to put off, and eating that thing in first thing in the morning, that reduces stress, that reduces anxiety, that calms you down, that gives you energy. So when I'm going through turbulent times, when you're able to attack that most important thing and get it done, that can help. That can help. That can help keep your head above water. The other thing that comes to my mind with this is something. This is the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is we talk. It's a appropriate time of the year to just be talking about goals and goal setting. And one of the things I'm just more and more convinced of for the great majority of us is that we need to focus on fewer things. We need to focus on fewer things. When I see a comment like that from Sean of saying, how do I keep my head above water in turbulent times? Like 95% of the work you're doing is just making things happen, is doing the work, doing the install, designs, estimating, ordering materials, lining up this trade, chasing down this material, picking up, running to and from, getting that permit, right? You guys are working and hustling all day, every day. And in order to continue to make progress, we still need to carve out time to work on the business. And we all of you listening to this should have some things that you have tagged and have thought through and have committed to as far as improvements that you're going to make in your remodeling business this upcoming year. What I'm more and more convinced of, and something that kind of keeps our head up and helps with getting overwhelmed, is if we can just focus on one of those things at a time, we'll make a lot more progress. You keep your head above water and you keep some momentum going when you're making progress. So the thought of stop trying to improve 4 different things at the same time when you only have 5 or 10% of your time to devote towards those on the business things. Focus on one and make a very clear, SMART goal related to that one. By Friday at 5:00 p.m., I will accomplish fill in the blank. That will move me closer towards implementing or achieving that goal. So Sean, that's my main thought, is make it a little bit more bite-sized. Plan out your day well. Eat your frog, the most pressing thing that you're most likely to put off. Eat that thing early. That's going to help. And then secondly, make sure you have some goals you're after and narrow that focus down to just one at a time. When you get that one done, then move on to the next. But try not to work on 3 or 4 at the same time, because we're only going to get 25% progress done on 4 things instead of 100% implementation done on one thing. So there's some thoughts for you, my friend Sean. Okay. Another Sean. We got a couple Sean's comments. Anybody else have any? You can have some questions or some thoughts today. Jim said, nowhere to go but up. Zig would say, see at the top. Yeah, it's motivational. I'm usually feeling, Jim, this is why it's a weird day. I'd usually be like, yeah, motivation. It's going to take more to get me kind of fired up and motivated today. But it sounds good. What's the top, by the way? What is the top? See you at the top. What does that mean? Does that mean financially you're at the top? Make the most money? Is that victory in life? Is that victory in business? What does the top mean? What an interesting question. It ain't money, by the way. Well, that was like a cliffhanger, Kyle. You didn't tell us what the top is. What's your thought on that? Well, sometimes you just have to think for yourself. What does it mean for you? That was fun. Another Sean said, company social media policies. Company social media policies. And that's all I got from that. You know what's really funny is that the 3 people after Margaret who commented are all named Sean. 3 different people, 2 different spellings. It's Big Sean Day. Company social media policies. I'd like a little bit more from you, Sean, on what that's looking like. But should we have it? Interesting thought. Certainly when it comes to your team out in the field and having some policies in place where we're making sure that we've got some, hey, during your work day, outside of your break or outside of lunch, we have a policy of kind of staying off our phones, certainly staying off social media. A lot of my clients have some policies in place there. A couple of my clients are dealing with some of their team members who are spending way too much time and being way too distracted during the day on their phones. So that usually gets popped up. We got some comments. Okay. I'll go back to those here in a second. You know, what's sad? You see companies. I'm answering this off of 4 words: company social media policies. You know, if Bailey, who's my employee, wants to post things that I totally disagree with on her personal Facebook page, that's none of my business, right? So, you know, we got this difference between personal and business, and we certainly have some interest in if they're doing it on the clock. But I guess those are my couple thoughts on that. Sean, feel free to comment with some additional specifics. Be happy to share some more. Michael says what is the top? Michael says there is no top. There's a lot of people that think there's a top, though. The movie Soul is perfect for every business owner to watch. All right, cool. David and Michael, they're on the same page there. Watch Soul. Okay. Dude, talk about thinking on the same page. Oh, here goes the bromance. Michael and David, the ratings were off the charts for the Michael and David at that point Remodelers show. And they're on the same path there because they posted that at the same time. Also, Inside Out to start that conversation about mental health. Good. Jim says, is there a bottom? I think there's a bottom. Michael doesn't think so. Okay. Oh, getting a little psychological. I've never been much of a psychology guy or, philosophy guy, but my wife has been working on me on that over the last 6-7 years. It's starting to intrigue me more and more. But people don't want to hear that on the Remodeler Show. What they want to hear is my answer to the next question that Sean Billings put in here of how do you handle when your team downsizes or someone goes part-time and you start to feel like you don't know the next steps or direction you should take? It's a strategy question, right? At that point, do I lean on my trades more? Do I start subbing out more work so that I can still keep my production numbers up to where they need to be to fund my overall business and budget and cover everything? Or do I need to hire somebody new? If I hire somebody new full-time, do I need to take my part-time person and say, look, I need somebody full-time. You only want to work part-time. I need to let you go because I only have enough work for this full-time person, right? There's a bunch of different directions that you can go with that. I just got off the phone right before this with somebody and we're talking about scaling her business. You know, when is the appropriate timing to do that? And there's multiple ways to approach it. In-house labor, trade partners coming in and facilitating it, a mixture of the two, lead carpenter versus production manager. I have clients who want 0 employees. I have clients who want full control of their projects. There's a lot of different ways to go. What I'm seeing there, Sean, is you start to feel like you don't know the next steps or direction you should take. Number 1, pull out the old Ben Franklin T sheet, make a T, put a heading at the top of a strategy you're thinking about and make your list of pros and cons. You might have 2 or 3 of those. I know that sounds like a simple thing. Everybody's heard of it, but take the time to write out your pros and cons to a given situation. That's a big one. Think about it. Seek counsel. There's wisdom in seeking other people's opinions. Go back there and say, hey guys, I'm debating between this and this. Here's where I'm at. I'm debating what direction to go. What are your thoughts? Even better, Sean, if you're listening, let's set up a Remodeler on the Rise live. And in the next couple of weeks, let me do a free coaching call. It's with everybody, but do a coaching call where we talk through this together and you get some feedback from me on it. Get some outside feedback. Think about it, strategize about it. But once and then make a decision. Be definitive. A word that I used a lot last year is be decisive. Be decisive with the thought. And something Gary Vee talks about that resonates with me is, when you make a decision, you've done it to your best of your ability. You've strategized, you've thought through it, you've sought some outside counsel. Once you make a decision, implement it, follow it. Don't sit there and second guess yourself to death. You'll never know if that other direction would have been a better direction than the one you're taking. Don't Monday morning quarterback it. Like, make a decision, implement it, see how it's working, and then adjust from there. And maybe you do adjust to plan B. Okay, so there's a few thoughts there. When you feel like you don't know what steps to take, you got to work through what are the pros and cons, get some outside feedback. What's super cool about this Remodelers community, so whether you reach out to me, Sean, whether you reach out to somebody else that might post some comments to your question, there's a ton of people in here that are willing to just pick up the phone and talk with you. you know, and hey, I was doing, so don't be afraid of reaching out with a post. Okay, great answer on the production side. Can you also direct it for the office side of things? Yes, yes. You know, on the office side of things, when is it time to hire somebody? That whole talk conversation. Yes, let me think about that for a second. Does that question speak to always recruiting? Perhaps always be recruiting. What's the worst thing you can do? Say, you know, I wonderful interview, but we're not interested in, we're not able to hire right now. We kind of made the decision not to, but that could change quickly, and have a little bit of a Rolodex of people that you can call and be in contact with. Be upfront with them about it. Don't build up their hopes, but nothing wrong with that. Interesting thought. The top. We're back to the top and the bottom. I got to stand on my tippy toes, or actually, I can just lower my desk down. If you don't have a stand-up desk, you're missing out on opportunities for your back not to hurt as much. The top and bottom, and the fear they both inspire: fear of not making it to the top, and the fear of hitting bottom. But they are both inauthentic fears, since we never actually experience them. Authentic fear being a reaction to something actually happening in the moment. At the same time, if you set a goal of the top and never get there, does that lead to feeling unfulfilled? Yeah. This thought of, you know, are you enjoying the journey? I made this post. I think it was on my personal page the other day. It was a guy named Mike Seddon, who was a Englishman, and I was in a mastermind group with him for a number of years. That my original business coach, who was a Jewish man in Israel, kind of interesting. Who was my business coach? We were in this mastermind group together. Mike got diagnosed with inoperable cancer, and just had documented his journey. Beautiful outlook on life and just perspective that he gave. And one of the things that he did near the end of his life, and Dove, my business coach, kind of hosted it, was something called the last webinar, which is, you know, kind of a sad thing, but it was his last webinar he was going to give. And what he had been very purposeful, Mike had been very purposeful of doing throughout his business career, is really stopping and reflecting and looking at some key questions that that he thinks are important to make sure that we're focused on the right things, that the business is serving our life, etc. And one of the questions on there is, am I enjoying the journey? Am I enjoying the journey? You know, what Michael just kind of posted and talking about the top and the bottom, if all of your excitement, if all of your satisfaction, if all of your hope is just stuck in, well, when I get my business to this level, or when I have it designed like this, then I'll be happy, you're going to be disappointed. Because there's always that next mountain to climb. There's always this next thing. You're going to realize it's not as sweet as you thought it was. So the question is, are you actually enjoying the journey? How much of our satisfaction in business and in making progress in our business and what we're up to and serving our clients and serving our employees has to do with making sure we're enjoying the journey? And if we're not enjoying the journey, what needs to change in order for us to do that? If you're not enjoying the journey because you're stressed out like crazy, you need to think differently about the strategy of your business. If you're not enjoying the journey because the business is controlling you and your marriage is suffering and your role as a friend or parent or sibling or son or daughter is suffering, we got to change that. But that question of not, well, when I get here to the top, then I'll be happy, it's fool's gold. By the way, the other questions, what is my why? These are Mike's questions. What is my why? What does success look like? And kind of defining that. Am I enjoying the journey? Am I hanging out with the right people? We know that the people around us influence our outlook and our progress and, frankly, who we are in a lot of ways. And then the last one was, what would happen to my loved ones if I passed away? Because he was living through that and realized that that's just such a tremendously important thing to make sure we're doing. Okay. Oh, and I'm not a Grateful Dead guy, but for the deadheads out there, least I'm enjoying the ride. 2 great books on Michael's Stoic subject matter, Power of Now and Algebra of Happiness. Whew, getting deep here. We started by getting deep. We ended by getting deep. And I hope that there was something in between or even in all of that that was helpful to you. It continues to be a bit of a weird day. But think about, what does it mean to be a good leader? Also, I'd be curious, what's the takeaway that you have from today? What's a takeaway that you have from today? There's a bunch of you watching live. Could you do me the appreciate it? Keeps me motivated, gets me some feedback. Hi, Jim and Heather and David and Michael and Tate. I see your Facebook likes. Appreciate it. Cool. That's all I got to say, I think, today. I was going to try to wrap it up, but sometimes it just makes sense to go. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk.